Hi, everybody. I hope that you're having an amazing time at BB Dev Days. It's such a joy to see how much this community and this event has matured over the years. You are here in part one of a three-part skills lab called Power Platform, Build a Data Integration and Automation App. I'm going to be joined on the stage shortly by my colleague, Glenn Hudson, who you may have already seen one of his sessions today, is one of our OG Power Automate gurus here to guide you through creating your very first Sky app. So you have that to look forward to. A few things just to note is that we have the chat here live. We also have some resources under the Docs tab, and you're going to want to make sure that you download that. The way Skills Labs work is that this is actually going to become a hands-on session. And because it's a three-parter, we are going to be building on what we've worked on day one, on day two, and on day three. So you'll need to make sure that you get through all of the steps in the guide for the day, or you might fall a little bit behind. We're going to follow a show tell, and then you guys are going to do. So you can just sit back and relax and watch everything that's going on for the day, and then use those guides as sort of homework or to use after the fact as well. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name's Heather McLean, and I am a principal product manager here at Blackbaud. I work on our Razor's Edge NXT tools, but I am an automation aficionado and love all things about automation and data efficiency. So have always been a fan of the Microsoft Power Platform and what our Sky applications afford our customers. If you can, just because we love all of the emojis and all of the excitement in the chat, it's good to see a lot of these names that I know from previous workshops and from BB Dev Days. We're going to keep our eye on the Q&A. So if you do have a specific question about the content outside of just like giving us a thumbs up and a cheer and sharing your emojis, please do use the formal Q&A to type those questions in, and we'll try to tackle those the best that we can as we go, or reserve a little time here at the end for those questions. Next up, just a quick safe harbor statement. We are going to talk about some future-looking things in this presentation as it pertains to Blackbaud and Microsoft Power Platform tools. So make sure that you make any buying decisions based on functionality that's currently available in the product. So I know that we have some frequent flyers or repeat guests that have maybe been in one of our build workshops before, but just so that we can all level set and start off with the same language, you're going to have to listen to me talk for just a little while longer and sort of set the stage on some of the vernacular we're going to be using and some of the why you are investing your time in building skills related to the Microsoft Power Platform. So first and foremost, you're here in a workshop called Automation App. So let's just level set on what it means. Automation is really a term for technology applications where human input is minimized. Note that I didn't say human input is replaced. So it is really about taking over some of those predictable, rote, mundane, maybe, tasks that could be performed by a bot or by technology or by an app. But you very much need humans to provide instruction and inform how that automation should occur. And hopefully that automation is also allowing the humans and our fundraisers to do the things that make them uniquely human, which is connect with other humans and potential donors. So really, it's just about minimizing human input where it may not be required in order to perform a particular workflow or task. We're also here because we are all low coders. I know that I'm not a coder. Glenn, he might introduce himself in a little while. He has a computer science background, but he doesn't consider himself a pro coder like maybe some of our BB Dev Days colleagues. But we certainly can use low-code tools, which include things like simple configuration or prescribing if-then-else scenarios, drag and drop interfaces, but it's not no code. So you're going to be introduced to some coding languages today, like JSON, if you aren't familiar with that. But a lot of it is just going to be sort of swapping out maybe one or two parameters in that code or copying, pasting code from one place to the next, rather than fully writing that code from scratch. That's what the Microsoft Power Platform sort of obfuscates from everybody, is like using this low code interface in order to build these pro code applications. So really it's talking about the why, and like that you're also part of a large and growing group here. By 2026, Gartner estimates that developers outside of formal IT departments, so those low coders, will account for at least 80% of the user base for low code development tools. And this is even accelerated from when we first started quoting statistics from Gartner on low code back in 2021. So it continues to accelerate at an exponential pace. And AI tools are even giving our low coders even more capabilities to build these applications at scale. So get ready in the chat, because I know you're all going to want to weigh in. Some of these benefits as far as automation for you and your team, so more of the why, is that 69% of employees expect that automation will give them more time to do their primary job duties. Does anyone feel that way? Is that why you're here? Gosh, if I could just get this off of my plate, I would be able to like really do my job, which is how to think strategically about my data, right? If I just didn't have to compile this really complicated report for everybody every week, I could focus on those data cleanup projects that would really help to us to better connect or solicit donors. Yep, 100%. How about 86% of employees think the use of automation in the workplace will let them think of work in new and innovative ways? Do I have any creative problem solvers in the house? Yeah. I mean, I love the opportunity that automation provides to really rethink those business processes, especially those business processes that have been in your organization for years and no one has questioned. Why do we do that? Why do we need that report? Why? And I find that if you answer that question, why, 5 times, you might get to the root cause of the way things are and why they're that way. But automation gets you to really think about those maybe older business processes and are they still relevant for your organization and how you can improve them. So it's not just about automating a business process as it always was, but thinking new ways around how automation can help drive efficiency in a business process. Yeah, love that. Thanks, Sunshine. So you're also going to hear us talk about extensibility. And really, that's just the ability to be extended or stretched. But when we think about extensibility in terms of technology or computing, it's really about designing or an architectural framework to allow for the additions of new capabilities or functionality. So you are here because the tools that you use from Blackbaud are extensible. They allow you to customize it and to incorporate or integrate new functionality within it. And so this concept is really best shared by thinking about your smartphone. So I know that whether you're an Android or whether you're an Apple user or maybe another phone, how many of you just left the apps on it as the ones that you came with? Like, I don't know, what do you get? Stocks, weather, and that's it, right? Nothing else, just mail. But no, you have actually gone to a marketplace and you have selected other applications that are purpose-built for something you want to do, and you have added them into your phone. It's the same concept when we're talking about things like Sky add-ins or apps that you can create, and you're going to create one today for Raiser's Edge NXT. You are creating purpose-built workflows or tasks or automations that you want to connect to that data or connect to that user experience. And there's several ways that you, as a consumer of our products, as a customer, can extend our solutions, those Blackbaud solutions. One, in the easy way, and you've probably learned from a number of our sponsors here today at BB Dev Days, are partner applications. These are companies who have created purpose-built solutions that you can find and connect with one click through the Blackbaud marketplace. Then it's why you're here today. It's DIY. So you want to use the Microsoft Power Platform, which really obfuscates all of the coding and the authorization and all of these like really codey concepts behind the scenes and allows you to build an application. So that's what we're going to do here today. And then we've got our pro code colleagues that are going straight to the source and able to use their APIs for complete custom development. But we're all using the same framework and the same tools, just in different ways. And the community is growing. So you'll probably hear when we do our Sky developer updates from the main stage, just how much this community has grown. And this event has grown. We have over 14,000 third-party Sky developers now in our ecosystem. About 60% of those represent developers like yourself from customers. We've got over 10,000 different Sky applications registered. So folks like you that have created those apps, those containers for that functionality, for those workflows. And then over 15,000 customers that have connected their environment to a Sky application. And about 20% of those connections are actually back to the Microsoft Power Platform app that's in our marketplace. So it's currently sitting at the 6th most popular app from the marketplace and growing. So you are in good company. You've already heard me say the word API, and you're here at BB Dev Days, so you may already know what an API is, but just to give it its own definition, it's an application programming interface, which is a way for two or more commuter programs to communicate with each other and to do so in a really secure way. So essentially, when you sign in with your BBID, you are like having your iris scanned in Mission Impossible, right? It is authenticating that you are who you say you are, and it is allowing you to use that API to perform tasks with your Razor's Edge NXT data or with your Blackbaud solution data for what you're allowed to do in that application. So it is a way for two different systems to communicate with one another in a secure way and to pass data from one to another. One of the helpful areas that you should start exploring, because these are really the tools in your toolbox, are the individual APIs or API endpoints that are available for our different Blackbaud solutions, including Razor's Edge NXT. So if you go to our API reference page, you'll be able to see sort of all of the different APIs or endpoints or different data entities that you can connect to and the tasks that you can perform. So I'll just drop this link into the chat because you're surely going to want to bookmark this. You'll be coming back to it later. Now, as I said, the Microsoft Power Platform, what it does is it obfuscates a lot of the code and puts it inside of a wrapper so that you're not actually having to program with that API, but it's an underlying service that's talking the Microsoft Power Platform. And it lets you use a set of sort of pre-built actions and triggers to build your apps and workflows in a more easier to use environment of sort of drag and drop and lightweight configuration options, drop downs, and rules. So we talk a lot about connectors. And essentially, again, that's just a wrapper around that API. Talking a little bit about the Microsoft Power Platform. So the Microsoft Power Platform actually has a number of capability sets or applications in and of itself. So within the Microsoft Power Platform, there are Power Apps. which allow you to are containers for creating sort of really high-powered applications that could be standalone or plugged into a Blackbaud solution. We're going to spend most of our time in this class talking about Power Automate. So Power Automate is the workflow designer, is the automation engine of Power Platform that also has tools like Power BI. I'm sure there's a skills lab going on right now about building Power BI reports. There's also other applications like Power Pages that allow you to create websites, and then Copilot Studio. Used to be called Power Virtual Agents, but it's really the place where you as a low coder can build your own Copilot or your own agents. And then there's lots of tools sort of underpinning that. But the big concepts to understand here that our connectors that we're going to be working with today work inside Power Automate and inside Power Apps. Now, Blackbaud is not the only company, although we have the largest footprint in the Microsoft ecosystem as far as connectors go, that has connectors in that ecosystem. So it is, again, what links any external system into the Microsoft Power Platform. Another place that you're going to want to go is actually to look at what are all of the connectors that are available within the Power Platform, not just Blackbaud's, but others as well. Because I guarantee you that there's likely some tools that you may already use, which means they have an off-the-shelf way to bring data together with Blackbaud's. So this is another link that you're going to want to bookmark. I will post it in the chat in just a few seconds, but it is the ecosystem of connectors. So Blackbaud, like I said, has a very large and growing family of Power Platform connectors. They are not perfectly aligned to, but pretty well architected to be sort of different sets of capabilities that you would find within the user experience in Raiser's Edge. So we have a specific connector for constituents, one for gifts, one for documents and interactions and events and lists and fundraising and prospects, and the new and notable ones that were true game changers for our automation aficionados were Query. That's also available for FE NXT. We've also released some other connectors for payables and general ledger, as well as new connectors for Blackbaud CRM and Altru. So you might also see just a plain old Blackbaud Raiser's Edge connector in our family of connectors. That was our very first connector, but it got so big that Microsoft asked us to break it up in these smaller chunks to make it more performant. That connector is still there. It still works. If you have automations using it, it's fine. We're not adding anything new into the plain old vanilla Raiser's Edge connector. So anything new, any new endpoints or features that we light up in a connector will either be in a new one or in one of these homes. So there's no plans to end service on that connector, but in this course, you're going to see us pointing to one of these specific connectors that you see on the screen. All right. Just checking really quick to see if I have any questions in the Q&A. Please feel free to type questions there. I'll tackle the first question about the cost associated with the Blackbaud connectors. So you will notice when you go into the family of connectors, not just Blackbaud's, but other vendors that you may work with as well, that you'll see a little tag that says premium. Most non-Microsoft connectors have that little premium tag. And what that means is that you need a premium license to work with those connectors. So while that is not no cost to your organization, it does have some cost, typically in the range of about $5 per user per month. And that allows you to use any any premium connector within the Microsoft Power Platform experience. So there's no real cost from Blackbaud to use our connectors. It would be within the Microsoft ecosystem around getting premium licenses to use those connectors. Another point to press on costs associated with the connectors, it is the automation authors. It is the architect of those flows that you're going to be building, such as the one in this skills lab over the next couple of days, that need the license. Not everyone interacting with a particular automation or workflow. So we recommend that every organization has a minimum of 2 licenses. That way there is a good succession plan in case we have the hit by the bus scenario, that you have critical business processes or automations that are being powered. You want to make sure that someone else in the organization also has access to the same business processes or flows if they need to update it. All right. Moving on, I just want to also stress that even though you may not see a first-class connector from Blackbaud for every single endpoint that's in Sky API, do not fear. We have 2 other tools in our toolbox to help. I believe there is another skills lab on building a custom connector. So whether that's using Blackbaud APIs or other APIs to connect into the Microsoft Power Platform, we also have this very, very special connector. It's really a utility connector called the Sky Add-in connector. We're going to be working with that over the next couple of days. The Sky Add-in connector has a particular action called the send HTTP request action that allows you to call any Sky API, so any Blackbaud API other than payments, to connect to. So there's lots of opportunity to find ways to connect your data into the ecosystem. So let's just focus on a couple of the non-Blackbaud connectors within that connector ecosystem that may represent tools that you already use. And I encourage you, if you do, this is a great time to be jotting down some of those automation ideas, some of those projects that might spring to mind as a result of seeing the different connectors within the ecosystem. So of course, we've got Microsoft connectors. So everything from Excel to Word, and we have a lot of customers that are using Word for building things like acknowledgements or other types of constituent outreach and communications. They have Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Forms, Planner, OneDrive. There's even an out-of-the-box connector that lets you manage complex approval processes. So those come with the Microsoft Power Platform. But if we have any Google shops in the house, do not fear. That does not mean that you cannot work with the Microsoft Power Platform. In fact, G Suite has Google Docs, Google Calendar, Google Drive, Google Sheet, Google Tasks. There's usually an alternative for our non-Microsoft shops, even working within the Microsoft Power Platform. And then other prolific connectors that we see our customers use are things like form building or data collection. There's lots of tools available, including SurveyMonkey and Cognito Forms. If you have processes like gift agreements and things like that, where you need signatures, so Adobe Acrobat Sign or DocuSign. Certainly on project management around Asana or Trello or Basecamp, connecting virtual or online events systems to Raiser's Edge NXT events is a pretty common workflow. Some marketing tools like Twitter or MailChimp or Twilio. And then even we have customers that are using the Power Platform to connect process and data between Salesforce and Raiser's Edge NXT. So if you work in a shop that potentially is using Salesforce for either your programs or for corporate engagement, this can potentially be a valuable tool to build a coherent and consistent experience across those two applications. Just a few more moments from me before we're going to turn it over and let you guys build your first app. I just want to give you a few other ideas that might inspire you and inspire your use cases. I really do encourage you that anytime, because it can be a whirlwind of 3 days here, that something that you learn in a session sparks an idea, write it down, come back to it later. And maybe some of these will give you some ideas of projects you want to take back and work on after BB Dev Days. So one is that data collection. So how many people here have a business process in their organization where they have a form online where they collect data about their constituents? And how many of you have to take that data that lands in an inbox and process that inbox and then manually re-enter that data back into Raiser's Edge? This is a great automation project. How can we take the data that's submitted through a form, match to a Raiser's Edge NXT constituent? If we're able to match them, update the data automatically. Good first project. Write it down on your list. So thinking about those places where you are collecting data and then you are having to re-enter that data into Raiser's Edge or another Blackbaud solution. Good automation project. Another one is ad hoc notification or report delivery. So how many of you are compiling something like this week's high value actions you need to get done, or here's all the large gifts that came into the campaign, or here are all of the proposals that have expected dates this month that are not in the right state. All of these reports that you build as the database manager to help your fundraisers use the system and do their jobs. So if any of you are sitting there compiling those, these are another great automation project. So getting those delivered to your inbox or getting those delivered to Teams or Slack or another tool. So, and let that happen behind the scenes rather than you having to compile it. If it's a predictable format that's being powered by a query or a list or some business logic that you can repeat again and again and again, then we can teach our automation assistant to do it for us. Another great project. So this one is making use of a Sky add-in, and it's a little bit cheeky, but it rings true. In this one, we are showing the example of external data alongside native data in Raiser's Edge NXT. So this is an add-in that's essentially building this custom tile on the Raiser's Edge NXT constituent page, but there are a whole host of places within Raiser's Edge where you can host this custom content. And this data doesn't necessarily have to live in Raiser's Edge to be accessible in Raiser's Edge. So here you're seeing the constituent weather where Robert lives, so that, you know, when your fundraiser wants to give them a call, they can talk about the weather. I'm Canadian. I know we like to do a small talk about the weather at the top of every call. How's the weather with you? How's the weather with you? Now you can really have that nice conversation starter with Robert. So think about data that may live external to Raiser's Edge that you don't necessarily need to like query on in Raiser's Edge, but sure, it would be really helpful for someone in Raiser's Edge to have knowledge of that data, right? And be able to see that data. That's another great automation project. This is another example, but again, here, instead of an external data source, this is more about cross-referencing data between Blackbaud systems. So here, this should look familiar to our Raiser's Edge users in the house. You have this tile within the development office within Raiser's Edge that has first and latest and greatest gift and some of the giving summary, but maybe it would be valuable for your organization, for your finance office to actually see a giving summary for a vendor who is also a donor. So we can use Power Automate and our Sky add-ins to actually create a view-only experience within Financial Edge NXT to view Raiser's Edge data. So again, for your organization, thinking about those points of intersection where instead of having to go out of one system and into another system, wouldn't it be great if that data was just there? And then, of course, there's custom functionality. So in this example, and you're going to create a baby version of this over the next couple days. This is actually a full data entry screen that's built using an adaptive card within Raiser's Edge, which is an add-in to capture data. So how many of you allow your end users to go in and make address updates or deceased records or any of those things that have complex logic, right? No. But meeting our users where they are, what if they could request those updates when they're on the record and get that out of your inbox? So in this way, they can request those updates. Those updates can come in a way, in a queue that allows you to review them and approve them. And if you approve them, then that data can be updated automatically according to your hyper-specific business rules around how you want that data processed. So these are just a few of the samples of the types of automation projects, especially early on, that we see our customers tackle. And we're going to be covering a lot of the key concepts within this skills lab over the next couple of days to power projects like these. So without further ado, I'm going to take a quick look at the Q&A, and then I am going to get Glenn up on the screen to see if we can get started and you guys building your first app. I see that there is a question around what's the best way to learn Power Automate and Power BI. So as you're coming up, Glenn, I'd love if any of the audience who may have been on their Power Automate or Power BI journey for a while to weigh in on that question in the chat. But I would say you have taken a good first step. Showing up here to BB Dev Days is a great way to start your learning journey. Coming to our user groups for Power Automate and Power BI are a great continuing education opportunity. Blackbaud University does have some courses for Raiser's Edge NXT customers using these tools. We have virtual workshops around the country. Physical workshops around the country, as well as other virtual learning opportunities throughout the year, but also relying on each other. Sharing and swapping your ideas and your code allows us to mature as a community. So I'll put a little link in about the template showcase here in a few moments, but those are great community projects that other low coders have completed and are sharing with others that you can use within your own environments. Awesome. So Glenn, I will turn it over to you to get everyone prepared for their first app or their first add-in.
Thanks, Heather. Again, good day, everyone. Again, my name is Glenn Hudson. Some of you might have already seen me before in an earlier session. I'm a principal solution architect here at Blackbaud. Really been involved in this, low coding for the past 5 years or now. Again, as Heather mentioned, I have a computer science background, but I'm not a pro coder. I know enough to be dangerous when I copy and paste stuff from Google. So certainly, by the end, as part of this foundational session, we're going to be talking about some new terminology that you'll be using, as well as giving you a little bit of homework in order to set things up, prepared for our colleague to take over tomorrow about really getting the hands-on. I want to talk about some terminology that we're going to see as we go through creating certain things for Empower Automate. These are getting more technical terms, or terms you should need to know about. First term is going to be an array. If you go and you're in Raiser's Edge and you look at that, you go to the list area and you say, show me all gifts greater than $1,000 last week. You see that list of stuff in the gift list within Raiser's Edge. That's an array. That's a collection of multiple items. If you want to do something to each of those items in that list in that array, that is what we call an apply to each, or a for loop. That means for each gift in that list, if I want to do something, if I want to call that donor and thank them, or if I want to send an acknowledgement email, or if I just want to make some notes of it, I do the same actions to each of those gifts. So that's an apply to each. There's a concept that's called conditional. That's basically a true false. That's are they a new donor, do this. If they're not a new donor, do this. There's a concept that's called switch. And what that is that a very basic example is what's their favorite color. If their favorite color is blue, do this. If it's green, do that. If it's red, do that. Or if it's none of that, do something by default. And there's also something that's called expressions, which is the code and low code that we'll get into starting tomorrow. That does a little bit of tweaking to your generally no code system that gives a little bit extra oomph. Now, the nice thing is I will point out is that beside the chat area, you're going to see a docs tab that's going to have this presentation with this terminology, as well as a handout that is going to be your homework before starting the session tomorrow. So I want to make sure that you guys are aware of that, so you'll have access to these things. Another concept is the word JSON or JSON, potato. I'm not a pro coder, so I'm going to probably pronounce it wrong. What this is that in order to get information in and out of a system in a coherent way, it needs to be in a structured system. We call it's called JSON. And what it is that basically it's a label and information. We call it key and value pairing. On the left, I have what's called a single JSON object that says, I want to get information about a specific car. I will get information about car 1234. I ask the API for that. It's going to give me a response. It may look cryptic for a second, but if you squint your eyes a little bit, things will start coming into focus. So what this is doing is that I'm asking for car 1234. It's telling me, hey, the make is DeLorean, the model is DMC12, and the year is 1981. You might have any bonus, you get virtual bonus points if you recognize that that's the car, that's the DeLorean from Back to the Future. So that's a single response. If I ask the API that says, hey, I want, give me a list of cars that fit this criteria, you're going to get what's called a JSON array. So this is just multiple of what's on the left. You'll see that in the center, and it has those brackets at the top and the bottom. It says, hey, you've got multiple responses, such as in that gift list within Razor's Edge, you may have multiple responses there. And in this case here, I've got the DeLorean DMC12 1981. But I also have another car on that list that's the Cadillac Miller Meteor Sentinel 1959, which people know as Ecto-1 from Ghostbusters. And in some cases, if I do kind of going back to that example of give me a list of gifts over $1,000 last week, that may be a list, but in some cases that may be a list of one. So that's an array of one. It's going to come in very handy as you start going through discussions starting tomorrow. But that's going to be good to know that sometimes you can have, just like you can have a list of one item, you can go in that list area of Razor's Edge, you do all your filtering, you get a single item in that list, it is still a list. Again, some key things to kind of review before the discussions tomorrow. Heather talked about a little bit about Sky add-ins. What are Sky add-ins? What Sky add-ins are, again, is adding features and functionality into Blackbaud solutions that are built outside of Blackbaud. They're built outside of Razor's Edge. Again, they can be created by third parties. They can be created by you. Sometimes they're created actually by Blackbaud. All this is basically a way of saying, hey, let's keep Razor's Edge, let's keep Financial Edge, let's keep all those stable, like what comes out of the box, but let's add those different pieces to that are created by third parties based on what we need. So if you need something very specific that maybe not every organization has, you may find it in the marketplace and have it as an add-in, or maybe so maybe something you create or your coders create, that is something that we call an add-in. Some examples of that are when we talk about if you're using PaperSafe, or if you're using Letterbox, or if you're using Rosterify, you may have a little custom tiles within your Razor's Edge that have that functionality. That's not living in Razor's Edge, that's living elsewhere, but we're showing that within Razor's Edge. Other places that these add-ins can show up, again, is those custom tiles. They can be as buttons. They can be as flyouts. They can be what we call modals, which are pop-ups or overlays, or even a full page. So again, this is a way that third parties, when I say third parties, somebody other than our Blackbaud product development team, can add features and aspects to the likes of Razor's Edge that's pulling data and functionality from outside. Where can these add-ins live? These can live in many places. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, the whole list here. But in Financial Edge, Ledger, Fixed Assets, Treasury, and so forth. Razor's Edge, we can have these Sky add-ins and actions, campaign fund and appeals records, constituents, the home page, the portal, and what have you. There's actually an example in the showcase which Heather put out there that shows how do we allow people who access the donor portal in Razor's Edge NXT to be able to update their communication preferences. We have an example of an add-in that's available for the portal that you can adapt to allow people to log in and update their communication preferences. Education and the constituent contact card has that. We got some options for Blackbaud fundraising, enterprise fundraising CRM, and we just added a few for grant making. How are we going to create Sky add-ins? There's a number of different ways to create these Sky add-ins. We've got what's called the Pro Code approach using CSS, HTML, JavaScript, Node.js. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, any of those, no worries. That's for the pro coders out there. Then we have the low code options. Power Automate can actually be used to create those Sky add-ins. The example that Heather showed for the giving information in a vendor record within Financial Edge is completely Power Automate. That's just spitting out the stuff to show on that tile. We have Power Apps, which was shown a bit earlier. It's another low-code option that requires separate licensing in regard beyond the Power Automate side. That sometimes can get in a little nitty-gritty, so we don't necessarily talk about that as much. But we also have an option that is called adaptive cards. Adaptive cards is what we're going to be talking about starting tomorrow in regards to how do I make some interactive features for Razor's Edge NXT in order to be able to have that fly out, that custom tile or what have you to allow people to view and put in information. The nice thing about adaptive cards is that this is something that has been published and supported by Microsoft, but it can be used in a number of different places, just like in Razor's Edge. It's platform agnostic. However, you have to know a little bit of JSON in that. The pros are the reason why we started using that. The reason why we started adapting adaptive cards, pun intended, is that there's no additional licenses required to do this. So it's an interactive way to be able to go through and create interactive features of Razor's Edge. You're still using Power Automate behind the scenes and using Power Automate licenses, but you don't have to worry about any additional licenses like that required for Power Apps. And again, it's not as low code, but there are examples and templates available. It is a drag and drop designer that's available in pretty much any web browser. It requires something to hold it, which we have available in regards to Razor's Edge NXT and Financial Edge NXT and the other solutions. And the nice thing is that you can use Power Automate to read it, the Power Automate to supply data to that card, as well as push information back into Razor's Edge. So kind of hopping back here for an example to one of the other examples that Heather showed, you're again starting tomorrow, we'll be making a baby version of this record update request fly out. This is an example that we're using an adaptive card to show the information, to show the drop downs, to show and to fill in the blanks, and then Power Automate to push that information back to where it needs to go, whether it be an email directly into Razor's Edge or what have you. An example of the adaptive card designer is what you see on the screen right here. Again, you'll get hands-on with it tomorrow. You're going to see some code surfaced on it. In most cases, you'll use the drag and drop editor in order to put together and assemble what forms you want to have, what fields you want to have, what content you want to have. And once you're done with that drag and drop, mostly what you're going to have to do is just copy and paste the code into a certain place within Power Automate in order for that, to show up within Razor's Edge. Again, that hands-on about it will be available tomorrow. However, in order to do any of this, we actually have to create our first app within the Sky within your Sky developer account. And what an app is, in the terms of the Blackbaud platform, is going to be that initial entryway. I'm going to create something special outside of Razor's Edge. I want it to show up in Razor's Edge. I need to create that doorway to allow me to connect the outside world, that special thing I'm going to create starting tomorrow, to something I want to have available within Razor's Edge. Again, that we call that a Sky developer app. I'm going to go through a quick show on how to do that. Again, under the docs area, by chat, there's a handout that's called Create Your First App. I'll do the rest of the session today going through the show method of doing that, show and tell method of doing that. Then you'll be able to then, as a bit of homework, do these same steps in order to get ready for tomorrow. That's coming at the same bat time, same bat channel, as they say. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to stop sharing slides. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, let me stop sharing. There we go. Share my screen. And Blackbaud Sky Developer. So the website, in order to get things kicked off, is going to be developer.blackbaud.com. Again, all that is in that doc that's in the handout that's in the docs area. I've already logged into the system using my Blackbaud ID. You'll need to create, if you're not already, a Sky developer account. If you've not created a Sky developer account, no need to stress. When you get to developer.blackbaud.com, there's going to be a Get Started button. And then you'll be able to see a button here that says sign up for a Sky developer account. So, since I've already signed up for a Sky developer account, it already caught up, and there it is real quickly before it disappears again and catches up with me. But you'll be able to actually sign up for a Sky developer account there. Blackbaud ID, really quick process. You're going to be asked, why are you doing this? You're like, so I can create apps. Very simple and straightforward. Once you go through that process, and you've got your Sky developer account created, you'll see Sky developer account here at the top, and there's going to be an item here that says My Applications. I've been doing this for a while. I'm going to have a lot of applications. Chances are you're only going to have, even if you've been working with this forever, you're only going to have maybe just a few applications. But I'm going to actually go through here, and I'm going to create a new application. Again, this is going to be my entry, my gateway. This is when I create, working with our colleague Ashley starting tomorrow. I'm going to create a new Sky add-in. I need to connect it into my Blackbaud solution somehow. This is going to be that gateway with that. I'm going to give the application a name, my workshop app, application details. Very creative, I know. You may or may not see an option here that says which team owns this application. I'm going to choose not owned by a team. If you do not see that question, no worries. You're not missing anything, It's just something that shows up depending on different scenarios. No, you're not supposed to be following. You don't have to be following alone. You can just watching now. Under the Docs tab in your interface here within Goldcast, there should be a handout there that goes through all these steps again. You will need to have completed those steps by this same time tomorrow to go through workshop part 2. Publisher name, I'm just going to put my name. You may want to put your organization name. I can't put Blackbaud here anymore. I think they're just trying to make it so if I'm doing something random and Blackbaud's name is not associated with it, but you can put your organization's name here. And it's going to ask for an application website URL. And you just put your organization's address. I'm putting a fake one here just because. There may be an option. You'll be prompted here to add a logo. If you want to add a logo here, that's fine. It is not required for the purposes of this process. So again, I'm going to go through. I'm adding application. I'm giving it a name, giving it details. I know they're not the most creative. I'm not the most creative person. If it asks me who owns this application, not owned by a team. Again, you may not see that. No worries. Going to ask me who created this. And it's going to ask me for a website. If you were to actually publish this to a marketplace, this will be the link they follow to find out more information about the app. Again, we're not going to be publishing this to the marketplace for the entire world to see, but just using it in internal examples. Once I click save, it's going to take me to a fuller screen that has the My Workshop app. This is very important, and we do, in the handout that when we go through and says, okay, this is how to go through and create the app. There is an area here that is called scopes. When you go through and you create your Power Automate flows and what have you, it's going to ask you to log in with your Blackbaud credentials or with your Blackbaud credentials. Whatever credentials and whatever permissions your Blackbaud credentials have to do stuff, you'll be able to actually do via the API or Power Automate. That means if I have the ability to read, write, and delete stuff, when I log in and start using my Power Automate flows to read and write stuff, I can also delete stuff with that. What scopes do is that this is an extra level of a safety measure that will allow you, the app creators, to say, what exactly do I need to do? What does this app actually need to do? Is this app going to really eventually go through and just read stuff and not make any changes? If so, then no matter whose permissions are logging in, I'm going to make it so that people can only read data. Or I can make it so that people can only read and write data, but not delete. Or I may make it so that people can go through and actually delete data as well. If I do absolutely nothing, if I don't go through and actually edit these scopes at all, even if you have supervisor permissions within Razor's Edge, when I try to go through and start executing the app, the processes that we'll be diving into tomorrow, if this no data access is selected, your flows will go nowhere. There'll be no data going back and forth. So at the very basics, at least to get through the workshops for the next 2 days, you're going to want to have at least limited data access with at least read and write selected. My apps, because I'm always connecting to test data, I always select full data access, which means Razor's Edge, Financial Edge, grant making, CRM, Altru, whatever, anything I have access to, go ahead and allow all my apps to access it. It's easy on my side because I'm always connecting with fake data. You may want to have separate considerations in regards to working with your data. On the very minimum here, when you go through and create your app for the first time, you need to go down to the scopes area, make sure that at least limited data access is selected, with Razor's Edge NXT having read and write selected. And again, all of this is laid out in that handout under the docs area. I can't remember how it shows up for those on the other side. I believe it's to the right of the screen share here. And that's all you need to do. Step one, in order to start preparing for getting hands-on to Power Automate, adaptive cards. I want to create my first Sky add-in. This is the fundamentals. We've gone through some terminology, some initial laying the groundwork. We've gone through and created our first app or gateway for the system. And then, starting tomorrow, we'll be putting the pedal to the metal in order to create our first tangible item. That will actually do that for today's session. Again, today is like a level setting. You'll be using, for these sessions tomorrow and what's today? Today's Tuesday. For tomorrow and Thursday, you'll be using what's called our cohort environment, which is basically if you mess something up there, it's not the end of the world. And that is something that you'll have access to because now you are but you've created an app already. at least the beginnings of one. So you're now a developer. At this point, if you've not already, tonight when you do the homework, you have created your developer account. You would have created your first app, and you would have become a developer, even a low-code developer. So again, we've got a few moments before the session closes. I know we threw a lot of information with you at once, gave you a little bit of homework. Again, it should only take just a few minutes to do, but I'll pause and see if there's any questions in the chat. I know Heather's been taking a look at the Q&A and to see if there's any other things that may be of interest before we call it a day today. I know for some people, you've already been in a number of sessions today, and then we'll get started tomorrow. If I put full data access, does this mean that those that don't have access to delete will have access to delete? No. What that means, what that scopes area means is an extra level. What that means is that if you don't have delete on, then even if somebody does have the ability to delete, they'll be stopped from deleting. So it's an extra barrier to stop things from happening that shouldn't happen. If whatever's connecting through that has no need to delete stuff, then you won't let it delete stuff.
I think there was just one question that we didn't get to in the chat here, Glenn. And if I want to be honest, Kim, I've missed the context of your question. Maybe you'll know what this means, Glenn. If not, then we'll ask Kim to type it again. How long are the quote rests unquote supposed to be for troubleshooting purposes? If it's taking longer than X number of minutes to update, we should contact support.
I'm not
Kim, if you wouldn't
sure
mind maybe trying again on your question, and we can see if you knew, if I was just lost on me, but I think we've lost the context of your question. If you want to try again. Other than that, I think I got to all of the questions. Just to reiterate that signing up for a Sky developer account doesn't mean you get an additional bill from Blackbaud. A Sky developer account is completely free. It's just giving you more access to some of the developer tools that, like we talked about today, the ability to create and manage those applications.
Oh, I see your question. So the data is not automatically updated.
Oh, so the data is not automatically updated as its REST API.
So different pieces of data within our different solutions may take a bit longer to show up. So some may be as few as 5 minutes. I think others may be as much as 30 minutes. So what that means,
maybe, yeah.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You would to know how long, I believe it is mentioned in the documentation that specific APIs as far as how long, but my experience is that nothing takes more than 30 minutes. Some things as quick as 5 or 10, others up to 30.
All right. I think there was a few folks that said that you may not have the additional sessions for part 2 and part 3 on your calendar. If that is you, if you could please email bbdevdays@blackbaud.com, let them know that you're in this 3-part skills lab and you don't have the additional days. We've got a team of volunteers here at the ready. It is the same time tomorrow and the next day. So if you just want to hold your calendar for now, don't sign up for other sessions and we'll get that onto your agenda builder. But thank you so much for being with us on part 1 of this 3-day skills lab. We'll see you back tomorrow with your application created, and we'll be joined by our colleague, Ashley, and you guys are going to start building your first data integration and flow. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your BB Dev Days and have a great evening. Bye-bye.